Hey everyone, Christopher Paolini here with a writing tip that I got asked about on Twitter. I have to say, I've been tempted to do a series of videos that are called like ChrisP, Christopher P, ChrisP writing tips. Yeah, no, yeah, I didn't think so. Oh well, I'm still tempted to just do a punny line of writing tips, the ChrisP writing tips. Anyway, the question was about what do I wish I had known when I was starting out writing. You know, back when I was 15, 16 and getting into Aragon and realizing this was something I perhaps wanted to pursue as a career, what do I wish I had known back then? There are a lot of answers, of course, and a lot of them are very technical writing answers. But the biggest one, and this is why I'm making this video, because I think this is really important for younger writers and aspiring writers to keep in mind. The biggest one for me was to realize that just because you write a bad sentence or a bad paragraph or a bad character or a bad scene or a bad chapter or a bad first draft does not necessarily mean you are a bad writer. And the reason is writers just don't get things right the first time. At least most of us don't. You might get a couple lines right on the first try. You might get some chapters right on the first try, but you're still going to need to fix things. And even writers who've been working for 20, 30 years still have to get large amounts of editing. You know, if you look up examples of Stephen King's editing or my own editing or any author who's well-known and has been writing for a long period of time, you will see that they're still covering their pages with red marks. And it's not necessarily because what they've written is horrible, it's more because you look at it and you see what more it can become. You can see that there is still room for improvement. So, you know, writing something that needs fixing is not bad. What would be bad is if you didn't fix it, or you didn't put the effort to learn and grow and try to avoid those mistakes in the future. You know, when I wrote the first draft of Aragon, I never even showed it to my family because I read it through and it was so bad, it needed serious work. I mean, in the first draft of Aragon, just to give you an example, not only was Aragon named Kevin, yes, it's true, but there was also a unicorn in the darn story. So, nothing against unicorns, by the way, but I think we can all agree that dragons are cooler. And even now, you know, my latest book, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, I had to do some major rewrites on the book as my understanding of the story changed over the years and as my own skills changed and grew and hopefully improved. So that would be the biggest thing that I wish I had known when I was starting out, that just because something's difficult doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. As long as you're improving, as long as you're willing to fix what's wrong, you are still moving toward your ultimate goal. And it's better to focus on the habits that are going to get you to the goal rather than just focusing on the goal. You know, you might have a goal of playing in an orchestra, you know, playing at Carnegie Hall or something. Well, it's a great goal, but just having the goal doesn't get you there. What gets you there is practicing every day, is having habits of behavior that will lead you toward what you're trying to accomplish. And in the case of writing, those habits would be, in my case, plotting my stories before I write them, getting lots of feedback, and working, you know, working with what I have and accepting it's not always great, but I can make it better. You know, you can't fix something that doesn't exist. That's the other thing. It's very easy to get paralyzed and feel like, oh, you know, I'm so scared about making this writing perfect that it's incredibly difficult to actually write. And that's an easy trap to fall into, but it is a trap and you want to avoid that. It's much better to write a rough first draft and then have something you can work on polishing versus never finishing anything at all. So that would be my advice. You know, it's as they say in the military, embrace the suck. Embrace the fact that some parts of this process are difficult, but it's a normal part of the process, and you shouldn't feel bad about the fact that it's difficult. I think that we have this idea of writing for some strange reason, perhaps because we're all exposed to writing every day. A lot of us read books daily, and there's this idea that somehow we should be able to produce perfect prose the first time without even having much experience. But we never have that expectation of musicians or mathematicians or engineers or anything else. We know that if you sit down to play the piano and you've never practiced before, it's going to sound rough. And that's not bad. That's normal. That's to be expected. Same thing with writing. Your first efforts will probably jangle a little bit, but if you're willing to keep practicing, willing to keep putting in the time, the notes will get smoother, your confidence will grow, and even though you still have to practice, you will become a lot better than you were, and you'll be able to get to that goal. You may not get to the goal in the way you envisioned getting to it. The path will change, but you will actually get to your goal. So that's my crispy writing advice. I hope it's of some help to some of you, and especially if there are some younger writers who are watching this. And as always, thanks for reading the books, and go forth and be awesome.